Laura Bush is often remembered as calm, elegant, and deeply composed First Lady. Laura Bush was born on November 4, 1946, in Midland. Her full name was Laura Lane Welch. She grew up as an only child in a loving family. Her parents valued education, discipline, and kindness. Laura's childhood was stable and comfortable. She loved books. Very early in life, reading became central to who she was. She spent countless hours with stories, literature, and learning. Books gave her joy. Books gave her comfort. Books shaped her worldview. This love would later define one of her biggest public causes. But one tragic night changed her forever. When Laura was 17 years old, she experienced a devastating event. In 1963, while driving in Midland, she was involved in a car accident. The crash killed Michael Dutton Douglas, a close friend and classmate. The tragedy deeply affected her. For years, Laura carried emotional pain from that night. It became one of the defining emotional experiences of her life. She rarely spoke about it publicly. But those who knew her understood it shaped her deeply. It made her more reflective, more private, more emotionally careful. That quiet strength people later admired, part of it was forged through pain. Education became her path forward. Laura attended Southern Methodist University. She studied education and later became a teacher and librarian. This career suited her perfectly. Why? Because Laura loved learning, structure, and helping young people grow. She genuinely enjoyed education. Unlike many future First Ladies with strong political ambition, Laura's early life was not focused on power or public leadership. She lived quietly, worked professionally, enjoyed reading and teaching. Politics was not her world. At least not yet. Then everything changed because of one meeting. In 1977, Laura met George Walker Bush. The connection was immediate. George was energetic, charismatic, and social. Laura was thoughtful, reserved, and calm. They were very different personalities. But sometimes opposites create balance. And that happened here. George was drawn to her intelligence and calm presence. Laura appreciated his energy and humor. A powerful connection formed quickly. Very quickly. In fact, George proposed only weeks after they met. Fast. Very fast. But both felt certain. They married later that same year. And Laura's quiet life as a librarian in Texas suddenly began moving toward something unimaginable. Because the man she married would eventually become governor. And then President of the United States. And Laura Bush would become far more than a supportive spouse. She would become one of the most respected First Ladies of the modern era. After marrying George Walker Bush in 1977, Laura Bush entered a world very different from the quiet life she had known. George came from one of America's most prominent political families. His father, George H. W. Bush, was already a rising national figure. His mother, Barbara Bush, was known for her strong personality and sharp wit. The Bush family was ambitious, competitive, and deeply involved in public life. Laura was not naturally drawn to that world. She preferred privacy. She preferred books. She preferred calm routines. But marriage meant adaptation. And Laura adapted with remarkable grace. Their personalities were very different, but that became their strength. George was outgoing and energetic. He loved social interaction. He enjoyed campaigning. He was comfortable in the spotlight. Laura was quieter. She observed more than she spoke. She listened carefully. She brought calm to emotional situations. Together, they balanced each other. Friends often noticed something important. Laura had a grounding effect on George. She could calm him, refocus him, help him think clearly. This became extremely important later in politics. Because George often relied on her judgment more than outsiders realized. Then their family grew. In 1981, Laura gave birth to twin daughters, Barbara Bush and Jenna Bush Hager. The twins became the center of family life. Laura embraced motherhood completely. She focused heavily on giving her daughters a stable, loving home. Even with the Bush family's public profile, she tried to create normalcy. Family dinners, reading together, school routines. She wanted her daughters to have structure and warmth. That protective instinct became one of Laura's defining traits. But George faced personal struggles. During the early years of marriage, George struggled with alcohol. This was a serious issue in his life. He later spoke openly about heavy drinking during that period. For Laura, this was not easy. She saw both his strengths and his weaknesses. She saw his ambition, but also his internal battles. Eventually, George made a life-changing decision. He stopped drinking. Completely. This transformation became one of the most important turning points in his life. And Laura's steady support played a major role during that period. Again, she became the quiet stabilizing force behind him. Then politics became real. In the early 1990s, George became increasingly interested in public office. By then, his father had already become president. That created enormous expectations. Being the son of a president comes with pressure. People compare constantly. George knew this. So did Laura. When George decided to run for governor of Texas in 1994, life changed again. Campaigns are demanding. Long travel. Constant speeches. Endless media attention. Laura stepped into political life more publicly than ever before. And something surprising happened. She was good at it. Very good. Even though she remained naturally reserved, voters connected with her authenticity. She felt real. Not artificial. Not overly polished. Not theatrical. People trusted her. That trust helped George's campaign. He won. George Walker Bush became governor of Texas. And Laura became First Lady of Texas. She used the role to focus on causes she genuinely cared about, especially education and literacy. This fit her perfectly. Books and reading had shaped her own life. Now she wanted to help others through education. Her public identity became clearer. She wasn't a flashy political spouse. She was thoughtful, warm, intelligent, steady. And soon, Texas would no longer be big enough for the Bush family's ambitions. Because the next campaign would be national. The White House was calling. By the late 1990s, George Walker Bush had become one of the most powerful Republicans in America. As governor of Texas, he had built a strong political brand. Confident, relatable, decisive. Many within the Republican Party believed he could become president. And soon, the question was no longer if he would run. It was when. The biggest campaign of their lives had begun. In 2000, George Walker Bush officially ran for president. For Laura Bush, this meant stepping onto the national stage. The spotlight became intense. Every speech mattered. Every interview mattered. Every appearance mattered. National media examined everything. How she spoke. How she dressed. How she handled pressure. Laura remained calm. As always. She did not try to dominate headlines. She stayed authentic. That became one of her biggest strengths. Many Americans found her reassuring. She seemed intelligent, composed, and sincere. Her background as a teacher and librarian added to that image. She felt grounded. Real. Then came one of the closest elections in United States history. The 2000 election between George Walker Bush and Al Gore became historic. The result came down to one state, Florida. Vote counting became chaotic. Recounts began. Legal battles exploded. The entire country waited. For weeks, America did not know who had won. Finally, after a major Supreme Court decision, George Bush was declared the winner. He became the 43rd President of the United States. And Laura Bush became First Lady. She entered the White House with quiet purpose. As First Lady, Laura focused heavily on the causes closest to her heart: education, literacy, libraries, children's reading programs. This felt natural to her. She wanted to use her platform to help children learn and grow. Her message was simple but powerful: reading changes lives. Books create opportunity. That mission reflected who Laura truly was. But everything changed in 2001. Completely. Then came September 11th. On September 11, 2001, the September 11th attacks shocked the world. Terrorists hijacked airplanes and attacked America. The World Trade Center collapsed. The Pentagon was attacked. Thousands died. America entered one of the darkest days in modern history. For the Bush family, life changed instantly. The presidency was no longer mainly about domestic policy. Now it was about war, security, terrorism, national survival. Pressure on George Bush became enormous. And Laura suddenly found herself serving as First Lady during national trauma. Her calm became invaluable. In times of fear, people look for stability. Laura provided that. Her calm voice and composed presence reassured many Americans. She gave speeches focused on healing and resilience. She encouraged parents, teachers, and children to stay strong. She became an emotional source of comfort. Behind the scenes, she also supported George during extraordinary pressure. The United States soon entered the war in Afghanistan and later the Iraq War. These decisions brought intense debate and global scrutiny. The White House became a place of constant pressure. But Laura remained steady. Quietly. Consistently. She helped keep family life grounded even during war and crisis. And as the world watched President Bush lead during one of America's hardest eras, Laura Bush remained what she had always been: the calm, intelligent woman behind him. As the years passed, the presidency of George Walker Bush became increasingly difficult. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq continued. Casualties rose. Public debate intensified. Support for the administration began to fall. Criticism grew louder. Some Americans strongly supported President Bush's decisions after the September 11th attacks. Others believed the wars had gone too far. Political division became sharper. And with every controversy, pressure on the Bush family increased. Laura faced a challenge few people truly understood. Being First Lady during wartime was emotionally exhausting. Every day brought difficult headlines. New casualties. New criticism. New uncertainty. Yet Laura remained composed in public. That composure became one of her defining qualities. She rarely responded emotionally to attacks. She rarely engaged in public conflict. Instead, she focused on service. That was always her instinct. But Laura was not passive. Many people saw her calm personality and assumed she stayed out of serious policy discussions. That was not entirely true. Behind closed doors, Laura Bush had influence. George listened to her. He respected her judgment deeply. She offered honest opinions, especially on issues involving education, family, and women's rights. One issue became especially important to her: women's rights in Afghanistan. Laura spoke publicly about how women suffered under the Taliban. This became one of her most notable public advocacy efforts. She used her voice to discuss women's education, human rights, freedom for girls and families. For someone naturally private, speaking strongly on global issues showed real conviction. It proved something important. Laura Bush could be quiet and still powerful. Meanwhile, she continued her lifelong mission. Even during wartime, Laura never abandoned her passion for literacy and education. She promoted reading programs nationwide, supported libraries, advocated for teachers and schools. This work remained deeply personal to her, because education had shaped her own life. She believed books could change futures. That belief never changed. Then came the end of the Bush presidency. By 2008, the Bush administration faced multiple crises. War fatigue had grown. Economic problems were rising. Then the financial crisis of 2007–2008 hit. Markets collapsed. Fear spread globally. It became one of the worst economic crises since the Great Depression. The presidency ended under heavy pressure. In January 2009, the Bush family left the White House. After 8 intense years, public life finally slowed.